Hi, I'm Amy.
And I'm Kirsty.
And this is our podcast covering the highs, lows and realities of parenting a child with neurodiversity.
Each week we'll be sharing updates from our lives and hearing from a variety of guests about their advice and experiences.
This is Love Needs No Words.
Hi and welcome to this week's special episode of Love Needs No Words. With it being the summer holidays, we've put together a couple of best of episodes. Enjoy!
So just a bit about Sarah. Her daughter Bryony is 4 years old, non-speaking, and received her diagnosis of autism this year. So it's so lovely to have you on to talk about Bryony. Did you want to start by just chatting through a bit about your journey and maybe what were the signs to you that she might be neurodiverse?
Yeah, so I think it's quite similar to both of your journeys. So there's a lot of similarities when we talked through before. I started with some hearing issues initially, glue ear, grommets, all sounding very familiar. And actually for quite a long time, I really thought that was because of her speech delay. So we started to try and find the cause, and I initially came to the conclusion that it was hearing related. Made so much sense because she wasn't responding to her name. She'd had a series of ear infections, and I was really fixated on that for quite a long time. And we did eventually get a diagnosis of glue ear. We did eventually get grommets fitted, but by the time we finally got the grommets fitted after the waiting list, we were already fairly sure that she was autistic because there were other signs. And I think it's probably something that a lot of people have gone through, where you want there to be the magic button that's gonna help, and actually there's so much more to it. So with Bryony, I think one of her biggest signs really early on was that she didn't imitate, and I knew it was about more than speech, and it did take me a while to accept it. I found that I went back and forth a lot for probably a year. One day I'd be like, I just think it's a hearing. Other days, like, I really think she's autistic. Other days, I'm like, no, she seems fine today. And the more I read up about autism, and the more I watched her, and the more I watched all the signs that I now know are signs of autism. So she was stimming. She wasn't interested in other children her own age. She didn't play with toys in the neurotypical way. So she'd be interested in a wheel spinning, but she wouldn't ever play imaginatively. She'd fixate on random objects. Like, she went through a very big fish slice phase. And just loads of little things that now, and I watch videos back now and I can see her flapping her hands and jumping on the spot, and there's all these things. I'm like, yeah, those are all signs. And now I know what I'm looking for. It's really obvious. But I think with her, the very biggest sign was the speech delay, and that's what kind of led us down the journey initially. I think when we got the diagnosis, I expected to get like a magic pack that's going to with all the answers in, and you get about 2 A4 sheets of paper telling you what autism is, which by that point you already know. I have so many moments when she's had a hard week, and I will get emotional talking about this, where I'm just like, you just want to do right by them, and you have to laugh or you'll cry. I am tearing up now, but like, there's moments where you're like, should I quit my job and just look after her full time? Do I need to homeschool her? And I don't think that's the best thing for either of us, because I think we need our independence, we need our space away from our kids. She needs that stimulation from someone who isn't her mother. Nursery was a really good thing for her, because actually it's forced her to socialise, it's forced her to get outside of the home. I'm really glad I sent her to nursery, looking back at it, because it wasn't my initial plan. My initial plan was childminder, because I was worried about the germs at nursery, which, to be fair, was correct. But brutal. I'm not normally this husky. I just have a cold all the time. Yeah, but every now and then I'll have a meltdown, because I'm just like, I don't know if I'm making the right decision. I don't know if mainstream school is the right thing for her, and we just have to try, and we just have to see, and if it's not, we'll have to change it. And something that makes me really angry about being a Sen mum is how hard the admin is, because you have to be able to write, you have to be able to communicate yourself, you have to be able to fight, you have to be be able to write eloquently about your child's needs. But there will be parents who don't have the education to be able to fill in 40-page forms, and the DLA form is 40 pages long. They won't have the ability to fight EHCP. If it goes to tribunal, they'll be scared and they'll just give up.
Today we are joined by Mary Long-Dono OBE. Mary is known for her work for going above and beyond to support victims of flooding, but at home she's mum to Peter, who is 28, non-speaking and autistic. Mary wrote so eloquently on LinkedIn about how difficult it can be to parent an adult with severe needs. Thank you so much for joining us, Mary.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure.
Thank you. So would you start by telling us a bit about Peter?
Well, yes, Peter is 28, as you've said. He's 6'3". He's a big bear of a man. He's loud, he's exuberant and very affectionate, but he's also suffers from severe autism, severe learning disability, and he's epileptic as well. So life for him is very tough and quite often very frightening. 28 years ago, when Peter was starting to go through all his behaviours, there was no one really to talk to. You didn't talk about that kind of thing. But today, in today's society, we all talk. And that's why I'm really happy to talk about it, because it just might help somebody else.
Absolutely. Yeah. You talk about Peter's behaviours. How did that impact like your social circle and your friendships and such like across? Because, you know, I found myself in situations where my behaviours that my son's exhibited have had significant negative impacts with friendships and such like along the way. Did you find the same?
Oh, absolutely. And I stopped getting invited to things because with the fear that I'd be taking Peter with me. So my friendship circle really, really shrunk. But then I found I'd got friends from special school who then come into your world. But because Peter was severely autistic, and had challenging behaviour, a lot of people at the special schools, children were more able, and I had to sit back and watch them improve and move on and do things that Peter didn't. So then again, they moved on. So you find yourself sort of seeking out parents who have got children with challenging behaviour, so that they can totally get you. And the very fact that Peter, I don't think I've mentioned that, but this on this podcast, but Peter smeared poo every single night, every night, and not having anybody to talk about that to, because talking about poo and smearing poo is really difficult, and I literally had no one to share that with, and even now, Peter does. I believe he's got a sort of sensory thing where he likes to hold on to his wee and his poo till the last minute. He likes it. And so when he says toilet, he means now. So if you're on the outside lane of the M42 motorway near Birmingham, it's not really very convenient. And one day he did, and luckily you've obviously both got a good sense of humour. But one day he had a pair of shorts on, and he did the worst, and it was quite loose. And so we were driving him back to his house, and he decided he was going to take those shorts off. Stood up in the car, 6'3" big man, waving his pooey shorts all around the car. We have a sort of plastic screen which divides him from the driver for safety reasons. And I said to my husband, who was driving, please put your foot down. And he said, why? Then he smelt why. But you can imagine, you've got poo flying on the roof, the windows, naked man. And my main fear was somebody with a dash cam would say somebody's flashing his Wilbur on the outside of the envelope. 42. So we that was a recent thing that happened to me. And another toilet, we pulled over, and I thought it was a wee, and it wasn't, and I blinked and he was stark bollock naked on a hard shoulder on the ring road of Bromsgrove roundabout in near Birmingham. And so it was pouring with rain, and we had to both get our coats and sort of protect his modesty whilst he did the worst, and tidy that up and get him back in the car. Oh dear, I'm going to write a book about his antics.
I think you
one
should.
day.
You need to write a book.
Oh, I could tell you, I could go on a whole podcast on poo adventures. I really can.
Peter's poo adventures.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Love Needs No Words. Today we're joined by Vicky Egar, who has run Wacky Woods Alternative Provision since September last year, a forest school in Maidenhead. Vicky, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us a bit about forest schools and about the one you work for in particular.
Okay, so forest schools are a very unique approach to learning, which obviously emphasises teaching children outdoors in a very nature-based learning environment. And it just provides children with the opportunities to explore and play and learn outside, helps them foster resilience, gaining confidence, and just really connect with nature and get that connection with the outside. I think for me, like, the aim is to kind of try and get more children playing outside and back to being children, really, and climbing trees and things. So I've got a few forest school provisions. I've got Little Muddy Me, which is a preschool for children from age 2 to 5. And at Muddy Me, we also run a home education group for children age 5 to 11. And then we've got Wacky Woods, which is our alternative provision, which is for children who struggle in mainstream school. So the idea is that they are at mainstream school for the majority of the week, and they come to us for respite. So that might be that they're at risk of exclusion from school, or they just need some time out, really, once a week or twice a week, to kind of reset. We work with children who find mainstream schools completely overwhelming. One child who struggles with communication and engagement in a formal setting quite often thrive in an outdoor provision. It just allows them to interact with nature. It allows them to move at their own pace, through climbing, digging, exploring, and it builds up their confidence, improves their ability to engage in group activities, and also develops their life skills. We do a lot of fires and using tools and things like that. And they just love it. They love having the trust, that goes with it as well. We're letting children use knives to do whittling, and they just love it. It's just...
I can imagine it's really amazing for children just to be able to explore their own curiosity as well, and almost self-direct themselves to be able to find the things that they enjoy. Because I think sometimes with school, like, it's very structured, isn't it? And for children that struggle with that structure and find that quite, challenging if their brain's not working in that way, or they see things in a different light. Absolutely. I would imagine with what you're doing, they just have so much more scope to be able to find the things that they enjoy, rather than it being quite so directed.
Absolutely. When we plan, we very much plan around the children's interests and what they like doing. So, for example, We've got a 12-year-old at our alternative provision who loves to cook, really, really enjoys cooking. And so most weeks with him, we do a cooking activity which he leads, and cooking on the campfire. And, you know, just last week, he wrote a shopping list. We went with him to buy all the ingredients from the local shop, and there was just so much learning. He prepared it all. He was helping, like asking the children to get involved and telling them what to do and what he needed chopping up, and preparing all of the food. And then we cooked it all on the campfire.
Wow.
And he cooked steak, garlic, mushroom. It was just amazing, like fried potatoes and broccoli. And we had this massive feast which he'd completely planned, written out, done the shopping, and then prepared it and cooked it all on the campfire. And it was just completely child-led, completely all his idea, and just loves it. Yeah, and there's so much learning and life skills comes from that.
And I can just imagine the confidence that young, did you say it was a boy that you're working with? Yeah, that young boy is going to be gaining from doing that. And I would imagine that perhaps when he's at school, you know, there's probably a lot of you should be doing this and you should be doing that, and the feeling that he's not doing all of these things. And then if he's able to achieve that, doing something that he loves, it's going to feel amazing. And building that confidence is so important in those early years, I think, because I just think there's a lot of negative messaging for these children.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Love Needs No Words. This week we're joined by Nicola Brassington. Nicola's son Marlon is 4 years old and has cerebral palsy. Marlon is a wheelchair user but learning to walk with a walker. Nicola, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's exciting to be here.
So cerebral palsy is a lifelong condition that affects movement and coordination. It's typically caused by a problem with the brain that develops before, during, or soon after birth. What would you say were the signs you first noticed in Marlon?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably typical of experiences that you've had. It's just missed milestones. So it was probably, it was during the pandemic, which made it really difficult to keep track of milestones anyway. And he was my first child, so I didn't really have a point of comparison. But he took a long time to sit up unaided. And even when he did, he wasn't particularly stable. He then was really slow crawling. And actually, when he first started to crawl, he would do like commando crawling with just his arms, and his legs would just be like behind. And I kept like trying to get him on his knees to crawl, and he would just go flat and fall with his arms. And so I started to go to a baby group probably when he was about 9 months, I would say, because it was lockdown, so they'd been closed. And that's when I really started to pick up on it. And then it was his 12-month checkup back at the hospital where we saw a specialist paediatrician because he'd been born prematurely. And they said everything was fine. They were like, you know, premature children can take up to 2 years to catch up with milestones. There's nothing to worry about. And I just had this feeling, you know, the classic pit of your stomach, like mum anxiety. I just in my gut knew that there was something different about the way he moved. And I said, okay, I would just really love to have a second opinion. And like, can I see a physiotherapist who might be able to offer me some support in getting him more mobile? So they said, okay, I don't think it's necessary, but if you would feel, you know, you really want to insist on that, then I can request it. So then waited, and he was probably just 13 months or so when we saw the physio. Luckily, it was quite quick. And straight away, they said, you've done the right thing by insisting on coming to see us. We think you're right, that there is something there. And at first I was relieved because I was like, well, finally, it's like somebody's listening to me.
Yeah.
And then within a week, we'd seen another paediatrician who gave us their thoughts that he had cerebral palsy, which was then confirmed about a month later with an MRI scan. And for those of you that don't know, cerebral palsy is a really big spectrum, and there's typically people can be affected either their upper body or their lower body or their right side of their body or their left side of their body, or maybe all 4 areas. And for Marlon, he's not on the severe end of that. He's probably like mid like level abilities, I would say, with his movement, and it's predominantly just his lower body. So his arms and his fine motor skills are pretty unaffected, but it's just the use of his legs that he needs more support with. So he is predominantly in a wheelchair, but he does have a little walking frame, and he uses that every day at school, at lunchtimes, etc. But yeah, it was probably like the first year of his life, we were blissfully unaware that there was any issue. And then at 14 months, he was diagnosed with that, which was just like, wow, where did that come from? It was like a kick in the gut, you know, like the very first time that they said the words cerebral palsy. I just remember being in this meeting room, and it's like, you know, in movies, sometimes you see like the whole room just sort of spins and like falls out of focus. It was a bit like that. I just felt I was having this out of body experience, just went into complete shock. Went home and just was like, just in shock. I had to go to bed. I was like shivering, like without, you know, adrenaline, I guess. I'm like physically just so shocked by what we were going through. And actually, we've got some good friends whose daughter is probably like 14 and has got cerebral palsy. So we were very aware of like what it was and how people are affected. So I think actually the medical team called me the day after they'd had our meeting, and they said, we're really sorry, we should have like, you know, softened the blow a little bit. We just want to check if you're okay. You know, it was quite clear that you knew what we were talking about when, you know, we told you our diagnosis. So anyway, it was very, very hard at first. We were completely shocked. And I think you go through this certain level of grieving with any like diagnosis. But really, that was the start of us then getting the right support for him. And that was the start of a really positive journey from there on in. And I think that although it was really hard, it kind of needed to happen for us to then get on the right treatment path. So it was positive after that. He would ask questions like, why do I have to have this? Why do I have to have physio? You know, and I was always putting it to him like very positively, like, this is going to make you stronger and better, and the wheelchair is going to help you get around, and you know, you're not always going to need it, but this is just to help you in the short term, and the more you work hard at physio, the less you're going to need it. And I think then it started to sink in, but it was only really when he went to school, I think, that he's probably been confronted with people taking an interest. You know, like I've been at public places with him where people have been like, why does he have that walking frame? Or like, why is he in a wheelchair? You know, and it's not out of a place of like meanness in children. They're just so curious.
Yeah.
And he has like little splints on his ankles that basically like plastic molds that give him support. And kids are so fascinated by them because they have prints on them. So he's got like Batman on one foot and like Spider-Man on the other foot. So they're quite bright, and kids are always like, what are these? You know? So yeah, I think he hasn't always understood, but more so going to school where he's seen so many peers. I think now he gets it. And now I try and talk to him about it relatively lightweight, but just frequently. So like, you know, that's like you've got a disability, or, you know, and I really try and put a positive light on it. Like I often say to him, you're going to see the best of people and you're going to see the best of the world. And I truly believe that, because people are so nice to him, and especially in the wheelchair, I think people often like just really feel for him. So, you know, I've had people buy me a coffee and buy him sweets before.
Oh, that's so kind.
Yeah, and people, like when we were on holiday, people were giving him things in gift shops and stuff. You know, like people always make conversation with him, try and make him laugh. Like, so I do think that as hard as it is coming to terms with a disability, and I'm sure that he will face many challenges, I really believe that he will see the best in people, and people will be going out of their way to help him and be kind to him. And I see that now with the children at school as well. Some of them are just so lovely and so inclusive, and you know, he knows so many people in the school because he stands out, and especially young girls, they want to like help him and look after him. They're so caring.
Nicola, what advice do you have for other parents who maybe have recently received a diagnosis for their child with cerebral palsy, or who are new to the journey? What advice would you have?
I think firstly, I'd say take your time with it and sit with it for a bit, because I certainly tried to go into like action mode. You know, what can I do? What can I fix? Just take your time with it and feel all the emotions and let yourself cry and talk to people. I think I was really surprised. Some of my friends just felt uncomfortable talking about it. And then other people were really supportive and I could talk to them openly. So I think try and find those people that you can talk to. Try and find your tribe, you know, and find someone that you can vent with. Like, I have had so many conversations with my mum where I'm just like, I can't believe this and that and rah, rah, rah. But it's so good for me to get it all out. And my mum always listens. And afterwards, I always feel a little bit like, okay. Because I think if you don't let it all out, you just sit with it. And then you sort of sit with anger and frustration. So definitely find, you know, your way to get it out. And then I'd say, I'm sure plenty of people have said this, but trust your gut as a mum. I think what I found hard with medical opinion is that it is just opinion. You know, it's very rare that you'll get black or white. It's, you know, different specialists' opinions on your child. So we've had like contrasting opinions, like the surgery that we had another clinician tell us, don't get that surgery, it's going to be terrible for your child and long term this and that and the other. And then another clinician that's like, it's the best thing ever. So you just have to make your own mind up. And I think you have to just take that with a pinch of salt, because they are opinions. It's not finite, and it's not, you know, a dead cert for your child. And then I think push back and challenge. You know, I've challenged lots of things over the years for Marlon, either like medicine that people have recommended or not recommended, or like the surgery that I just knew would be good for him. And then also, you know, appointments. Like we get quite a lot of appointments that I just turn down, and I say like, no, we don't need anything right now. We don't want to come to another PD, because there's so many of them.
Yeah.
And unless there's something that I can see as being beneficial to Marlon, then I just don't want to do it. Because especially with physio, like we often get asked to do these they're called CPIP assessments, which basically they just take about an hour and a half to 2 hours. They measure like so many different things, but then nothing comes off the back of it. It's almost just record keeping for them. So I'm just like, no, sorry, let's just do the normal physio session, because that benefits him.
Yeah.
So I would say, yeah, push back on things that you don't think are beneficial for you or your child, and trust your gut and know what's right for them. And yeah, find your tribe, find people that can lift you up, and people that you can share things with, because it can be a hard journey. So sharing that and talking it has always been really helpful for me. Don't let it rob you of the happiness of your child. You know, like I think it's really important to just enjoy the years where they're younger and enjoy that special bond. Don't always try to be fixing them or pursuing a treatment or, you know, trying to better their outcomes. That just enjoy them for what they are, which is your little bundle of joy that you're going to love, you know, regardless of what they're going through and what the diagnosis might be. So yeah, just try and enjoy it.